my pleasure to introduce Safwan Kezbor, Medical Director in Clinical Development at Shionogi Incorporated. He is a physician scientist and clinical drug development leader with extensive experience across various aspects of clinical development. During his tenure in academia and biotech industry, he led multiple clinical development programs in wide span of therapeutic areas. Dr. Kezbor is passionate about innovation in drug development and clinical study designs. His talk today is entitled Rethinking Clinical Trials Beyond COVID-19. Thank you so much, Safwan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asker. It's really a pleasure to be here today. Good morning and good evening, everybody. It's really very exciting and interesting time. 6 months ago, I was here, different platform also, presenting about how we can mitigate the risk of COVID on the clinical trial and how we can reserve the data with the subject we have on trial. And here we are now, we're thinking an exciting period, how to move forward and take all the advantages and the opportunities of this. So with this, let me just share my slides. Okay, you should be able to see my slide right now. Excellent. So today what I'm planning to talk and discuss with you, it's about rethinking clinical trial beyond COVID-19. This is something really probably in depth of my work in clinical development, and when it comes to designing different kind of protocol and study endpoint, designing the eligibility criteria, how is a new model and what we need what application we need to have from this era. And the other thing also I will want to discuss, to start with this, we want to discuss first of all the general concept of beyond COVID-19 and how that affects really the healthcare system delivery and the pharma in general. First thing, let me start just by a quick disclaimer. So this view and opinion expressed today in this presentation, it's my own, and it does not reflect my current employer, Shionogi, not necessarily, and I do not have any conflict of interest to report today. So as I mentioned, the first topic I already covered, and then I would like also to discuss why the change is needed today at this specific time. And the other thing, at the last, this will set us the stage really very well to discuss what consideration we need to take, as many of us right now heavily involved in designing clinical trials, new designing, which would be a great opportunity right now to move forward with all the lessons we had already.
My apologies, Safwan. It looks like your slides are not advancing from our end. I guess you go back to your slideshow and just click on it manually.
I see. I don't know why, because it's advancing from my end. Let me just do
now
it again.
We're on the topics to discuss slide, post-COVID-19 impact on the pharma industry.
Yeah.
Slide number 3 is the one that we're on. So if you come back to your actual PowerPoint, slide number 4, we can see that.
Excellent. So probably I will keep it this way. Okay. So the first thing really it's about this is probably from CDC, and this is earlier at the COVID-19. What I want to present here, first of all, to set the stage for this, it's how the healthcare system in general right now changed. Without these changes about healthcare system and really knowing what's exactly happening and what will happen in the near future, we cannot look into significant and meaningful changes in our clinical study design. The actual visit to the hospitals, just part of the standard care, has been, as we already know, has been reduced in a significant way. The thing is, we expect this to last pretty much long period of time. So we expect this to last probably until end of 2021, with a heavy discussion even beyond right now, with a heavy discussion right now, probably some of you are aware of, between standard of care physicians and how the telehealth can be introduced and can be still play very significant role in the future standard of care visits. The other thing here in this slide I want to introduce also this slide was presented from CDC very early at the beginning of the pandemic, and this is starting from, you will see, from the first really week of March. What you can see here in the bold line, it's really a significant increase in the telehealth use that really introduced at that time. This is something I already introduced in the previous slide, but the reason I'm sharing this slide is to introduce a new idea. You will see at week 10 here, at day 10 actually, in March, what really happened at that point is a CMS telehealth waiver, which really introduced this significant increase to telehealth. For you who probably not very familiar with this is kind of waiver for specific requirements that give better access and better flexibility for the use of reimbursement for the telehealth system, payment, and even globally over nationwide over specific state and geographic area, how this can be handled. And the point here, it's not enough if we really want to change either clinical trial, healthcare system. It's really required the involvement of all the stakeholders. One of them here presented in the slide is the regulators. Regulators always has been major stakeholder in any drug development business, clinical trial, patient engagement. So that's really reflect how we all need to have all the stakeholders, especially at this time, together, keep the momentum and move forward. In this slide actually was presented by Global Data. And I found this very interesting. This is recent slide. This is, so every year we collect some kind of survey about a leader and expert in the pharma industry to highlight what they think is the major points. It will be every year. So this year was for 2021. Usually when I look into this kind of thing, I know what kind of therapeutic area will be the focus or the hot topic in this year. So you will see this here, probably introduced in immuno-oncology, micro, and vaccination in general. But what's really unique in this year, out of this probably 10 topic, the ones that I highlighted with arrows here, you can see more than probably half of them, they are related to the way we are dealing with new drug development and new clinical trial. So they highlighted the remote patient monitoring. It came number one. Real-world evidence, how we use this. Precision medicine, decentralization of clinical trial and virtual clinical trial, patient empowerment, and electronic health records and the use of this. This is very unique for this year and give you a really indication about the changes happening and where we are moving. I want to highlight also, this is in general in pharma, but let's go specifically for clinical trials and what will happen in clinical trials. This publication, I took this figure from Chue 2020. This publication was in Nature Drug Development magazine. And what we ask here, so we discussed in the previous slides what happened in the last couple of months, what's the changes, but now what's the expectation for the upcoming period of time, specifically for a clinical trial. So in this survey, they ask investigators in different geographic area, different sites also, to highlight which of these changes happening in COVID-19 will stay. As you can see here to the right, telemedicine, everyone believe it will stay. This is a percentage, 78% of people believe it will stay. Remote patient monitoring, e-consent, electronic patient report outcome, and all of these, there is in general belief that it will stay. And there are strong indications also for this, just again, because of the nature of the standard healthcare system delivery right now that we all need to adapt to. But also what I want to highlight to the left here in the two graph, you will see them in orange. So this is interesting point here, and this is what the changes, the opinion they had in this survey about what the changes have been in pre-crisis, at crisis, peak, and then post-crisis. Let's focus just at the crisis peak and then post. So you will see a little bit reduction in this, which honestly I would expect. If you ask me, do you think we will continue at the same level of telehealth monitoring visits? I would say not at the same level. The main reason for this because many of us were forced to go to that domain, that arena, because there were no other opportunities. Most of the hospital clinics, they were already closed. So we went through telehealth, having remote visit, sending nurses to the subject home, and different way to collect our standard procedures in the study. But when you look into this one and you compare it, and this is an important point, when you compare it with before pre-crisis, you will see significant increase, maybe threefold what's the expectation. And I think this is the direction we are heading right now. So now why changes are needed? There are really, and this is for any, many of you work with different pharma and biotech, sometimes changes require strong reason and rational and risk assessment for this. It's sometimes for big pharma and big biotech, even smaller one, it's harder to take significant changes, which might include some kind of risk, and we need to introduce what's the risk involved and the most important part, why change is needed and why now. So change is needed because, as we mentioned, the adapt in the behavioral changes of the patient and the healthcare. We do need also to expedite the access to the new innovation. That was always major demand from all the healthcare and the patients. We need to shorten the time of go or no go decision for all of these, and all of this information right now we will discuss later, the real world evidence, the real world data. All of this will help us also through making this kind of decisions right now in new study designs as well. We need also to enable the use of electronic health record, which I think it's shame not to use it more often. This one, there are a huge amount of data sitting in clinic, in the hospital that can be a very good indication in the way we design clinical trial, we design our endpoint, and what population we are looking into. We just need to integrate this. And by the way, itself, the electronic health record, it's going through its own innovation right now with all changes to the better outcome. So we just need to make sure we have the way to integrate this into our internal plan. And the last thing, we need to ensure wide access by the society, wide and fast access with a sense of urgency to the society, to the new innovation and the new drug developments. So the other question now, is it right now the right time of change? I would say definitely yes. And the reason for this, I would highlight three reasons. The first one I will discuss briefly in the other two slides. There are, first of all, right now in the perfect opportunity for significant increase positive rating for the pharma reputation. I will discuss this in the previous slide and see exactly what happened and why that happened and why it's perfect opportunity to have these changes now. But the other thing also, to build in all of these experience we had in the last, right now, few months during this time, it's a great opportunity, and we should really to learn from this lesson, and we should not let it just go with this era. And the last thing will be to enhance the current and established collaboration environment, which is really, it was a unique thing when you see all the stakeholders right now, including patients themselves, investigator, academia and lab, all of them, and regulator as well, all of them, how they got together to expand the access for all the population and expedite the timeline to have a new drug delivered to the market. So let's see why it's really right now it's a great opportunity. The first reason I mentioned here is about the positive rating right now, high positive rating for pharma. This was from the Harris poll, and the pharma, you will see it highlighted here, the pharma rating in yellow, and you will see 60% increase just from January 20 until May 20. So when this poll, and this is during the early news about the pandemic. When I look into this data first, the main question came to my mind is why? This is really significant increase. Is it because of the way the pharmaceutical provided information about COVID, or is it about the way they supported the patient who are already on medication or prescribed medication, or is there any other reason? So I looked further into this, the same one in this slide, and this is the main reason really. It's about the overall response to the COVID-19 and the way the pharmaceutical industry readjust to this and get to the rescue if you want very quickly, to have expedite the timeline, engage different stakeholders. And the main focus was to get high quality of product at a very expedited and short time, get all the science together with the society as well. And if you think about it, this is clear message about what the society, what the patient, what the scientific committee, they really want. They want expedited process to get innovative medication to the market as soon as possible. So with this, we kind of had very good idea about what changes in the pharma in general. Now let's go and reimagine more about the clinical trial and what changes need to be happen at this stage. The first thing, I think, it's repurposing COVID-19 response. If you had COVID, or if you have anyone from your immediate family, friends had COVID, at that time, it would be very important for you to get them treatment, vaccination, as soon as possible, as we already probably know people who had this experience. But now think about repurposing. If you think further about this one, every patient who are having kind of rare disease or other kind of unmet medical need, which there are really many, as most of our pharmaceutical company working in many of these new unmet needs, some of them really old ones. But when you think about it, for all of these people, it's really urgent for them. It's the same sense of urgency for COVID-19. So that's the thing we really want to rethink about it, how to repurpose the response, the lesson we had toward this unmet need right now, to have kind of similar, if not the same response, fast response, with the same level of readjustment and collaboration. So how can we achieve this? How can we adjust? First of all, we need to support and expand the established clinical network that we already established. We need to invest in the decentralization of clinical trial, as we discussed, because it's just a change of the environment, the whole environment around us right now. We need to value more the need of real-world evidence and real-world data. I will talk about this in a few slides after. It's hard to have presentation without talking about this these days. And we need also to improve the data collection, which is also, it's really in the same area about the real-world data in general. So the changes really we need to have in the clinical trial, again, everything, now think about the habits that change right now. Most of the people, even 2021, 2022, they change their work to hybrid work. They are not going to be going on site every day just for work business. Marketing and getting your shopping, it will be kind of the same. We have seen significant peak on this. Even going to the clinic, it will be less. So with all of these changes, you would not expect people with all of these changes to accept the same model, previous model. Just they need to go, if they want to be part of clinical trials, they need to go to on-site visit every week, every 2 weeks, every month, 6 months to have this. This will not be acceptable with all the changes that happen that will stay with us. So what we need to think about when it comes to preclinical trial, we need to think about study endpoints, clinical trial design, inclusion, exclusion criteria, and safety monitoring. I think flexibility will be the key here. And flexibility, we are looking into different factors for it. Flexibility in the patient population, flexibility in the study procedures, flexibility in the way we collect the data and we move forward for this. So I think this will be the big title: flexibility, convenience, as same any other industry in the next probably a few years. So if we start with the first item, which is really clinical trial design, what we need to focus on. First of all, we need to focus on prepare for the new standard of care that we already discussed and how we can integrate this into the design and study assessment for our new study design. How to have more flexible design for the study so we can anticipate the external changes that happen. And we had already passed this experience. The main thing happened during COVID-19 experience that we were not anticipating these changes. We were dealing with study protocols that were done in normal fashion, that we're not anticipating any changes, significant changes in the physics and in the lab, how they function in the lab, how the imaging lab will function, all of these biomarker collection. So we need just to keep in mind how external changes Probably this time it was pandemic. Sometimes it will be something else. How will play role into this and have good contingency plan? We need to assess the needs of the adaptive design as well. We need to have remote clinical monitoring visit, which I think this factor will stay really for a long time now. Probably it will be the new normal as well. We need to use of the new adaptive system like electronic ICF, and we need to have engagement from all the stakeholders. The other thing we need to think about it when it comes to clinical trial. Right now we are talking about clinical trial design is diversity, and diversity is very important. It's not only about including all kind of population, gives them all access. This is very important part, but the other important part, it will affect, if you think about it, by the end of the day, our data. When we talk about diversity, we talk about different race, different age, gender, sex, different background as well. Just imagine, I give this example sometime, just imagine if COVID-19 vaccination, the clinical trial that was done was given only to people who are working from home, shifting like many of us, working remotely. What kind of data you will be collecting then if you don't have this diverse group with people working in the grocery store, people working in transportation, people working from home? So by the end of the day, if we don't focus in the new coming years about diversity, by the end of the day, it's not only about the access, it's also about how the data will be reflected in this population once it's in the market. Just to, look into this and see the need for this diversity in the clinical trial. The Black or African American population is 13.4 in the United States. Only 5% of population in clinical trial are Black or African American. When you go to Hispanic or Latino, as you can see on the screen, it's even worse. So that's really tell you on this slide how much work we need to do on this. And as you know, right now with all the vaccination, when we are reviewing them, the briefing document from the FDA coming and the discussion, one of the topic will be always about regulatory, even what was the race that include, what's the female versus male ratio that include in these studies. How we can enhance this, the diversity, it's by enhanced trust, and this is really, it goes back probably to many years. There are some opportunities and area we need to work on with some population to enhance the trust. We need to use the technology. Pretty much if we are focusing right now, if we want to target population of 70 years old, the way they are getting the news, we all realize it's very different in some just example, some population will be very different from other population. If I'm targeting 20 years old, the way they react also to this information is very different. We need to increase the awareness of this, and we need to enhance the transparency, which transparency, I think, will be the key that can lead to all of these other factors. When it comes to inclusion-exclusion criteria, we need to really have a broad criteria into the protocol. We tend always to be very rigid for some very specific reasonable reason. When you are designing clinical trial and you want to exclude some co-funding or some factors. However, now, if you are really thinking about using data coming from the standard of care unit, and if you are trying to eliminate the use for any in the screening procedures, any specific use for any new study assessment, we will have no choice but to really have flexible criteria which will maintain our primary endpoint, secondary endpoint, but in the same way allow with very good flexibility. And also we need to enhance the use of the real-world data. How we can think about safety monitoring consideration right now when we are designing clinical trials and in this new era. And this topic really kind of troubled me, as a physician. And when COVID situation happened, the main concern I had, we had already patients, they are already on investigational medication, and this patient right now, they are not able to come back and see their doctor, see their visit, so I cannot access this data and do my assessment on this. And this will continue right now if we don't have very good consideration about this in our future study assessment when we are talking about decentralization and remote visit. It will be at some point, it might come as challenging for us. So what we can do here is, first of all, we need to adapt the the use to virtual visits, but in the same time expand the use of this for general standard of care system. And let me here give quick example, the way we've been thinking always, as many of us, when you go to site initiation visit, when you go to delegation of authority right now, and we have specific people trained, and the visit need to be done at specific time with specific person. All of these were very important for us to have control on the study, good training. What I'm saying now is the way we need to think about it now, it's slightly different. We need to think about a new way of training, a new way of having what data we can accept if this patient went to other doctor or other physician. What's the criteria we can establish to accept this data at the same time? We need to enable the use also of decentralized labs and biomarkers. It's not one example of this, the way we've been dealing with oncology trial, where specific training for pathologists needs to be done at the site. And this can be done, this biopsies and this analysis can be done only in that specific location. This way, again, it is important for us, but right now we just need to think about a new way of having this treatment and deliver this kind of new system. We need to monitor in this new system for safety. We need to monitor very closely the changes. And I think my experience, that was very something actually we could have better control on this. If you are using the wearable devices, you can get real-time access to the patient. We can have flag for the data to just have you send you a message for any changes that you already said you want to know about it. It's very important at this new set, if we are talking about decentralization, to have even closer monitoring for this. And it will be easier with all the technology we have right now. And we need also to always justify the reason for extensive assessment that always need to be done at the site for a very short period of time. When we talk about clinical trial and design and changes, introduce changes, many people will ask me, first question, and I've been asked this many times about clinical trial endpoint. What is very important and how we can, if we are talking about a new revolution in clinical trial, what we can do is the endpoint. The important point, about this, I think endpoint to be truth here, it's something maybe that we cannot change a lot by the endpoint itself. What we need to do, we need to change the way we are looking into this. For example, when we are looking, there will be some endpoint has clinically significant and clinically meaningful input for this. And this is, we cannot go around it. If we need to prove some treatment that if it's very effective, we do need to look into this. But the way we need to rethink about this one. It's about the way we can have the same input established. Same as the example I mentioned about the biopsies. For the imaging study, MRI, many sites, they have specific site to go for specific training. So we need to change the way we think around endpoint. We don't necessarily need to change the clinical endpoint itself, which is sometimes it's very challenging to change this because it's already established for some very good clinical reasons. And we need to have very good engagement from the regulator as well about any proposed changes ahead of time. Real world data here, we have seen just the very good and probably the bad data coming in during the COVID situation. For many reasons, it has been really mixed experience on this. But the main reason here, when we use real world data that's coming really from clinical trial, clinical hospitals as their patient behavioral data like wearable devices and other devices, and claim, which is traditional, very old way right now for regulator to get this information. When we get all of this information, what we need to think about it's different way to analyze this information. The experience we had in the last few months with this, if you call it real-world data or observational study for some data, we had many examples about hydroxychloroquine, anti-inflammatory medications that being used for COVID, and what the data we have done. Some of them were very accurate, some of them were not that accurate at that time. And when you look into this, I think that the message here, we definitely need to invest more on this. However, we need to rethink about new ways to do this. We need to understand better how the electronic health system, the standard one, work. Without this understanding, we cannot have very good quality of this. We need to adapt here also. We need to start with very good inclusion-exclusion criteria. The good thing about technology give you tons and thousands of patient data to be, to real world data to have it established for your clinical trial. But the question here, which one you need to use? And this is really big topic about how we can establish specific criteria, even for real world evidence and real world data to use them. Collaboration here, it's the message I want to give. It just we need to continue with the same way right now about all engaging all different stakeholders and have this momentum to continue. And my takeaway notes here will be, right now we have really tremendous opportunity to build for the future with all of this. The future of clinical development and drug development, I see it as definitely shorter timelines, more decentralized, and definitely have more access to real world data. And the success for this will really be evident by the collaboration of all the stakeholders. I'm sorry if I went just 2 minutes over time, and I'm ready to take any question you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you for your presentation again, Safwan. If there's any questions from the audience or from Dr. Oscar.
Excellent presentation. Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Safwan. And we will be moving on to the next room, if everyone can go over to Mr. David Hamilton. It is Innovation to Disruption, the Underestimation of Profound Shifts. So let's all